the best musical skill that they get in jazz band is just they get to know that jazz is American. Like
Yes.
that is like there's nothing more exciting than to be like, this is ours. Nothing is cooler than that to me.
I
And
feel like
getting to
that's the
play,
one.
yeah,
This is the one true American
American.
musical art form is jazz,
which
and
gives me chills to
it's
think about.
important.
I'm recording a podcast. You need to shut that door, please. I'm sorry, Ryan, you're gonna have to edit that out.
Hello and welcome to Band Room Therapy. We are just four band directors sitting here talking, and we hope you can enjoy us. My name is Ryan Ashley. I teach in Arkansas.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Mrs. Allen, and I teach in West Virginia.
I thought we were going to go around. My name is Mr. Schwartz, and I teach in New Jersey.
My name's Miss Hazlitt, and I teach in Wisconsin.
Well, hello everybody, and we hope you're enjoying already this podcast.
And
So,
we're all band directors, if that isn't obvious.
yes, we're all band directors. I'm an assistant band director, but I take care of the jazz band at our school, and I teach trumpets. So that's kind of like my background of where I'm coming from.
Nice. Yeah, I am the main band director at a middle school, grades 6 through 8. And then I teach fifth grade band after school twice a week for like 13 weeks. And then I do run jazz band at our school every day.
High school band all the time. Jazz band, marching band, concert band, you name it in the high school level, I'm teaching it.
Teach middle school band, and I actually started the band program 2 years ago at the school that I'm teaching at. And this year just started an after school jazz band.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Hopefully, by the end of this episode, if you're thinking about starting a jazz band or you're in jazz band, you have some ideas and it doesn't seem so scary. Because I know for a lot of directors, jazz band is like super, super scary. So, first off, I just want to talk about like what our background in jazz is each. For me, when I was in high school, we had a jazz band. I didn't do much with it, but it wasn't until I got to college that I really like engulfed my whole self in jazz band. The college I was at had a very, very good jazz band. We ended up playing at Midwest. We were offered to play there. And then the next year, we were offered for this 2-week cultural exchange program. I played in China for 2 weeks with my jazz band, played lead trumpet for all 4 years of my college experience. And now I have jazz band at my school. I play in a couple jazz bands around here in the area, tour. It's pretty fun. So what about you, Miss Allen?
Yeah. So I had a jazz band in high school, and I was only in it in like junior and senior year because that's when I started learning trumpet. And it was like we had block scheduling. So it was like a split block. So you could have it all year long with band. So I had jazz band, then band, right? Like one right after the other. And we played some fun music, and I really, really liked it. It wasn't taken super seriously because he had just kind of started it. And then I went to college, and man, it was such a serious situation with jazz band. I was like a music ed person all the way and not a performer at all. So when I got to college, I was like just this little bumpkin from the middle of nowhere, just liked playing my trumpet. And then there's like these performance majors that were being like passed around on a silver platter, like in all the jazz bands. And I was like, I guess I won't get a spot in the jazz band, but there was a second jazz band, and I'd spent time in there. And we played okay music, but we didn't play music that we were going to eventually learn to teach, which was sort of frustrating looking back at it all. Like I wish we could have played like the charts that I teach in my jazz band, because that would have made a whole lot more sense. But then I teach jazz band. It started out after school, just like Miss Hazlitt, and eventually got to the point where I could have it every day in school, and it's my favorite part of the day. It's the best part of the day. It's like I think I said in a text message to you guys, it's like the band candy.
Rick?
Yeah, so I was in jazz band all through high school. We were actually a very competitive program. I think that they won the state championship in Pennsylvania for 6 years in a row. Sadly, we lost my senior year, but we won best trumpet section. So as a trumpet player, that kind of weighed a little bit more. When I went to Westchester for college, did jazz band. We also had two groups. I started in the lower group. There were some really awesome trumpet players. So I didn't really stand a chance, but I had a great time in jazz band. Then I moved up eventually to the top band once some of those guys graduated. And then once I left school and I started teaching, like I've just been a director of a jazz band. And it's so much fun. The first school I was at, we did, one day after school or in the evenings, didn't really compete, but we had a blast. And the school I'm at now started a jazz band, wasn't really getting the instrumentation I needed. They actually gave me a jazz band class, which was more of like a combo. So we could do a little bit more improv, which is not my strength, but we had a lot more fun and we could do arranging, so many different things. And then pretty much right before COVID hit, I brought the jazz band back and we've been competing ever since then.
Awesome.
Nice.
Miss Hazlitt?
Yeah.
My first experience was with jazz band was in middle school. We had an extracurricular jazz band that met before school, like once or twice a week. So I joined that when I was a seventh grader. And my band director really wanted me to play tenor sax. I'm a clarinetist by trade, and I just really liked playing my clarinet. I was like, this tenor sax thing really isn't for me. Wasn't really having a lot of fun trying a big instrument. And I'm like, I just want to play my clarinet in jazz band. So I played clarinet. It was nice. My middle school had it where anybody could join jazz band, no matter the instrumentation, which was really great for novice musicians to just be exposed to different genres. But then when I got to high school, jazz band met Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 6:15 in the morning. And freshman me was like, I can't play my clarinet in that. I don't
Not
really
under these conditions. No.
Nope.
not like it's standard jazz instrumentation. So like I'm not playing a saxophone. Like I don't really want to wake up that early. So I didn't join jazz my freshman year, but then the end of that year came around and the kid who was playing Barry sax graduated. And we had nobody that was interested. And my band teacher was like, "Hey, Lilia, would you want to learn the Barry sax?" And I was like,
Intimidating.
Yeah.
so
From
I said
clarinet
yes.
to Barry.
I took lessons over the summer. Like I practiced, I got it. And I ended up loving it. It was so much fun. So I played Barry sax in my high school jazz ensemble for sophomore through senior year. And then I went to UW Eau Claire for college, also a phenomenal jazz program. Like there are some stellar musicians that are coming out of that jazz program. And I knew that I was not like at that level. Eau Claire had 4 jazz ensembles, but I got there my freshman year and I'm like, well, I'm going to audition and like, I'm going to do it for a semester or a year and have some fun. And then once I got to drop it, I'll drop it. And I ended up getting to perform in the Jazz 2 ensemble. I played Barry in Jazz 2 for a couple of semesters and I had a really good time. And then my admin certificate kind of had to take priority and I didn't do jazz after my freshman year. But yeah, that's my experience in jazz.
Our jazz band did get selected as the state honor band, which was super duper cool. First
Big
time in
congrats.
our school's history, and my history of getting an honor band, which is so cool. We've definitely for like 18 years. I think we were eligible 15 of those years, and it never got it because there was always a band that just snuck ahead of us. But those were directors who had been doing it for a long time too. They knew the equation, they knew how to do it, and I was just like slightly under them. And when I'd see the scores, I was always be like, gosh. Well, all
Well,
those
big
directors
kudos to you and big kudos to those kids.
Absolutely.
yeah, they're retired now, so now there's a little bit more room for other directors to do a good job too. But yeah, the kids, it's all about the culture too. And, I don't know if we're gonna talk about that, but I will say that these kids, like, they love it. They listen. They go home and they listen to jazz because that's what jazz is about, is language. You can't play it unless you can speak the language, and which is a huge part of it. So
What about y'all state? So here in Arkansas, y'all have an all-state band, right? Y'all have like a state
Mhm.
band. So we have an all-state band for jazz band as well. So that's really good. We have kids that try out. We have region level that you have to get before you go to state in our school. So we have all state, we have all region jazz, we have all state jazz. And now in our state, man, in the 13 years I've been teaching, we have jazz has just exploded. I feel like we've just respected it more, added it more into our curriculums across our state. And now we're looking into having a state jazz band assessment. And I think we're so close to having one, similar to a concert band assessment, but jazz. And I think it's personally, as someone who has jazz experience, I feel like that's a little touchy subject because, like, improv, how are you going to tell a kid who put their heart and soul in something and wrote something? But, that's a whole besides the point. But in our state, I think we're doing very progressive stuff with jazz. And I really, really like that. So what about you, Miss Allen? How's West
so
Virginia and jazz?
in West Virginia, like, I think there's a big tradition of jazz, but all we have is like a regional competition. And then it used to be you performed at the region, and then if you got a superior, you were like put in for the state level competition and then you submitted for the honor band, which was that way for all up until the past 2 years. It was like that. But the reason they changed it was because that festival would be Saturday. And then if you got selected, you had to perform at the state conference the next Thursday,
Quick
which
turnaround.
Yeah.
a lot of the years, the directors would be from like where the area where I am, and the bands would be from there. And that's 5.5, 6 hours away from where the conference is. So not only are you planning a concert in front of the whole, state of educators, music educators in your state, you have to plan a trip for all your kids and get hotels and buses. And we finally were like, we've got to do something about this. And now we do a recording a month earlier. You submit the recording and then you get selected based on that. Which, you just got to have your band ready. It's got to be ready by the end of January, which is tough when you get snow and everything. Like ours was
First to
due
spray.
January 31st, and we were off that whole week. So I had to record the week before because thankfully we knew the snow was coming. But then that's it. That's all we have. There's no all county jazz band or all district
There's
jazz
no
band or no.
individual way for a kid to get recognized in jazz.
No.
Wow,
And
man.
I would like to start an all county jazz band where we are. Just it's something that's kind of I would like to get going and, maybe move up to like a district thing. But there's just so many schools that don't have a jazz band, which, I didn't talk about earlier, but the reason why I have jazz band every day is because we have this period where kids just like they have to do all that bogus stuff that they
Do I need to censor that?
like Alex's, their math stuff and their
Yep, we use
IXL.
Alex too and IXL.
And I excel and, like, sometimes they get help with reading or math if they've got that extra time. It's 30 minutes. It's the first thing in the morning. They take attendance. It's like your homeroom. And in order to be in jazz band, you have to be on that stuff. You have to do it on your own because we're not gonna take time to do it in jazz band. And I tell them, I'm like, "And if I find out you're not doing it, then you are leaving the jazz band because 'cause we're not gonna stop jazz band because you're not doing your work." And so it kind of motivates those kids to just get it done. And because they don't want to sit on their Chromebooks, they'd rather be playing their instrument in jazz band. So now, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have like pushed for all that. I'd be like, oh, I guess we better do this stuff too. But like, I've just, learned that I can kind of push kids to do a little bit more and it's not that big of a deal. Some principals wouldn't go for that though. Some principals would want you to like just completely follow the rules and do everything right, but I'm thankful that I have an administration that like supports it and lets me do that because I wouldn't have the success I have without seeing those kids every day.
What about New Jersey? What do y'all have for jazz there?
So it's very similar to Arkansas. We have that region jazz. It goes from grades 7 through 12. I think the auditions were actually this past week, but they got canceled because of all of that weather that was
Yeah.
coming in. So it got pushed back a week. But you also have the state jazz bands as well. You can audition for those. I don't necessarily know if you need to make the regions to auditions for states. I think that you could just audition for both of them. And then there is, I don't know what it's like in West Virginia, Arkansas, or Wisconsin, but we have the NJAJ and New Jersey Association for jazz. Too many letters for jazz
We have
educators.
an association. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there are festivals through that. It's really just 2 weekends. They have the regions. And then if you make the finals, like very similar to West Virginia, you can go to the finals. It's not a 4-day, 5-day difference. It's like a month or two apart. So, but we haven't competed in those. There are a lot of schools down here that they host their own festival. They bring in their own judges and then bands come in, they get critiqued. Sometimes you can get clinics while you're there where a company will bring in
That's the
a couple
best.
of people
Yeah.
from the area. No, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that this weekend where we get somebody that right after we perform, he comes in and works on the things that we're missing. But there's no, in the competitive aspect of what we do, there really is no circuit. So there's like no championship at the end. And I don't know, as somebody who is competitive, I like that finality of like crowning a winner. Maybe it might go back to my sports background as a kid. I don't know. But yeah, we, like I, even said earlier, we just enjoy going out and performing. And if we get a gold or a superior, fantastic. We just look for great, performances. I do want to get into that NJAJE at some point, but I don't know if we're there yet.
Yeah. What about Wisconsin?
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, It's very similar. Students have the opportunity to audition for state honors jazz. We don't really have like all region or all county or anything. It's just like you audition for state honors the
Mhm.
same way you would for concert band. And it's like you perform at the state conference. And that's good and great, very similar across the board with what everybody else has said. And then, similar to what Rick was just saying, we have a lot of schools. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but I've been to a couple that have great jazz festivals every year where you bring your school, you perform, you get clinics, you're not judged against other schools per se, but it's a day of jazz. There are separate rooms for rhythm section and saxophones and brass, and you get to work on those different separate things. And then you Eau Claire also has a wonderful jazz festival that high schools go to and compete at. So,
So
yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So if you have an all-state jazz band, and then you also have at the same event the like all-state band, kids can't do both, or can they? Because we
So
don't
here
have
So
an
in
all-state
ours,
Arkansas,
jazz band. We just do regular all-state band for middle and high school, but there's no jazz. So how would you pick?
so ours are different in New Jersey. The All-State Band happens in like the end of January. Yeah, pretty much end of January. For jazz band, the region jazz band that concert ends up being in April. And then the state jazz band ends up happening in November. We have this really cool thing called Teacher Convention Weekend where, yeah, everybody goes to Atlantic
very
City
cool.
for
Sounds so cool.
it's
Oh, never mind.
yeah. Everybody goes to Atlantic City. Nobody goes. We just get a whole weekend off. But that's when the All-State Jazz Band gets to go perform. So they're not even the same weekend. It's more, and not to get away from jazz, but it's more that how do you choose between concert band, symphonic band, and wind ensemble? Because there's like 2 or 3 different, ensembles that do that, but they also perform on different weekends and different times. So, but it is kind of tough. It's hard to do all of them.
So ours is the same weekend, and about I think it was 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, you could do both. So they would the jazz bands would rehearse at 2 days before, then they would do like a night after they did concert band all day. A lot of us hated it because those lead trumpet players, I mean, y'all play trumpet except Miss Hazlitt. Like your face is just shot. You can't turn around and scream out C's after playing. So a bunch of us got together and said like, hey, they got to pick. And it was a hard conversation to have with the state that kids are going to have to pick. They can't do both. And
Mhm.
I think we've seen some success. And now the question is, do we have too many kids in All-State? Because now you have full jazz. We have 2 jazz bands at All-State, 3 concert bands at All-State. And now the orchestra directors are coming in and saying, we have some horn players too. They have to pick. And so now we have all these kids and we're kind of struggling to find kids to outfit these high quality ensembles. I mean, we're kind of at the tail end of trying to figure that out here in our state.
I don't think any state has a perfect equation, that's for sure.
Not
Wisconsin, they are the same weekend in Wisconsin. There might be some other like extra performances that they do that I'm not aware of, but I know they both perform at WMEA.
And do you have to
And
pick?
I'm not sure. I actually don't know the answer. Like I'm running through the list that I know that have done it before, and I can't think of a kid that's ever done both. So I feel like they might have to pick, but I could be completely wrong.
It's hard. And for us, you can pick after you find out your chair. So some kids will be like, okay, I made first alto in first jazz band. If I don't make first band concert, I'm picking that, and so you kind of get to wait because the
I
tryouts are
don't
the same weekend for us too.
But how great would that be for more saxophone players? Because I don't know about you guys, but sax is so hard to make in the all-state band.
Oh my
Yeah.
It's
goodness.
the hardest in our state to make.
Same
But
here.
if there were jazz, for them to pick from, like so
Yeah.
many more saxophones could get to the all-state band and be able to perform at that level. And I always just feel bad for saxophones.
I don't feel bad for him, but it is hard.
Well,
they
wouldn't that
picked
still
they
only
picked
be
that instrument.
Yeah, but wouldn't that still only be 5 saxophones making it to the All-State unless there were multiple jazz bands?
We have
Well,
2
some would
jazz
Would
do.
bands, so it's 10.
Yeah, so in
Okay.
concert band, so there would be, the 4 that are in the all-state concert band, and then the 5 that are or 4 altos anyway
So another 2
into
altos.
yeah,
Yeah.
so a few more
Yeah.
altos.
Okay.
If you made 5th chair alto, well, you're not gonna get to
Yeah.
play, but you could end up in the jazz band or, vice versa or whatever. So, I guess that's what I was thinking. And I have a bass guitar player who that's all he plays. He tried and he wanted to audition for all-state band, and I was like,
Do
"I
y'all
don't
have
have
string
anything."
bass in concert band
No, not in middle
for
school.
All-State? We do.
Not in middle school. But I might get him to play like regular bass and do orchestra or something next year, even though I don't teach orchestra. That's a whole different ball game.
That's another podcast.
Yes, that's a whole other podcast. Exactly.
So let's talk more about like jazz band itself. In jazz band, do you see other musical skills that kids learn that they don't learn in concert band? I think yes. There's so much that has to do with style. You were talking about learning the language. Each articulation has a whole nother meaning in jazz band. When you get to the real nitty gritty, is jazz band is everything that concert band is, but you're a wind ensemble, 1 2 apart, and every ink on that page means that much more because you're by yourself. And so I think you get a lot of kids who get better readers, they're better listeners, they have more range on their instrument, and not just like physical range, but range of volume and range of dynamics and range of articulations. They can do more. So I see all of those skills come out in my kids who are successful jazz. What about you, Mr. Schwartz?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think articulations take on a whole new meaning. That marcato or that staccato is completely different in jazz band than it is in concert band. But I also think kids get to experience so many more different musical styles, between Latin and swing and bebop. And I mean, we can go on and on, ballads. I just think that they get just more experience playing different styles of music as opposed to always having to do a march or not knocking Randall Standridge because we love him. But,
Yeah.
we're always doing, pieces like, similar to that. We don't really stray away from the styles that we're comfortable with. But in jazz band, you get just so much more within that language of styles of music. But I also think, and we've said it,
And
listening
you're
is a big
encouraged
deal.
to.
Well, yeah.
Most festivals want you
Um,
to play other things.
Right. And I like listening is a big deal, but I think really the ones that I think benefit the most are your drummers because how bored are they in concert band? If
Yeah.
they're not if we're not doing a Randall Standridge piece that has 10 percussion parts, it gets very tiring and boring
Well,
and
even on your
in
march, your
that back
percussionists
row.
are bored just going boom chick, boom chick.
Yeah, right. So I think, getting those kids on drum set or being able to create auxiliary percussion parts, like they get all of that freedom, which also, allows you to improv. You don't really get to do that in the concert band world. So being able to have just total freedom on your instrument and play music, like those are a lot of the skills that these kids get to build.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that especially for like a beginning jazz band, at its core, playing in jazz band is another opportunity for you to practice your instrument. So I've seen the students that have started jazz band this year and are putting in those extra couple hours a week in an ensemble setting come back to jazz band, and not only are they better like counters and know their music vocabulary and are the first ones to raise their hand and help the person next to them, but they're becoming better leaders. Like they're becoming better leaders
Yes.
on their instrument, and they are setting the bar for that like band community because they're playing their instrument more and they're becoming more comfortable with the skills that they are learning as novice musicians.
Yeah, I feel like your jazz band kids, they become your core musicians of your band a lot of the times because they're playing
Uh-huh.
more, they're learning more, and they're diverse what they're playing. They're playing a lot.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. I had 7 kids make the all-state band this year, and every single one of them was in the jazz band. And fun fact, they several of them played different instruments too. So I think that's even cooler. Like one of my horn players, what is an alto player in jazz band? My drummer made it on horn. So my drummer plays a ton of instruments. But yeah, I agree too that they become some of the strongest musicians in your group by far. But I don't think that the group needs to be just filled with strong musicians. Like I want every kid who wants to be there to be
Mhm.
there because
Yes.
they're gonna sit next to that strong musician, and they're gonna be learning from them the whole year long or however long they sit there, and they're gonna be influenced by them and that leadership of that stronger musician. Hopefully, they have good character, and hopefully they they're bringing them along, and, I always try to, model that for the kids, like, "Hey, the leaders get help from me, and then the leaders then give the help to the other students," you know? It's a little bit of everything in that, but I think the best musical skill that they get in jazz band is just they get to know that jazz is American. Like
Yes.
that is like there's nothing more exciting than to be like, this is ours. this is our heritage, and this like nothing is cooler than that to me.
I
And
feel like
getting to
that's the
play,
one thing we haven't said yet. We said it all the time in
yeah,
college. It's like,
yeah.
this is the one true American
American.
musical art form is jazz,
Oh, it
and
gives me chills to
it's
think about.
important.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so fun to be able to be like, all right, summertime, we're gonna play summertime. Like just a standard. Getting able to play standards with the kids just is so much fun. Just as much fun as it is to play like a funk chart that Mike Story wrote. But it's great to do. I'd love to get the standards in the kids' hands because to me, then they start to know the names. Like we're playing Summertime, a Sweeney arrangement, and it's a little upbeat. It's faster than the original. And I heard my trombone player talking the other day and said, yeah, the Charlie Parker, Ella Fitzgerald version is way better. And I was like, yes, like that's the conversations I want them to
That's the other
have.
beauty about jazz is, like, you take something like Summertime, there's probably 100 recordings, and that's just the good
Right.
ones that you could all go, "I
Oh,
like
yeah.
this one. I like this part of this one. I like this part."
Oh, yeah.
I wanna go back
And
to something you
it's
said a
so
second
neat.
ago.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You were talking about kids who struggle in concert band in a way of, like, do you ever see those kids who come from concert band who are maybe not your best players or they're struggling a little bit, and then they get in the jazz band and all of a sudden, like, they blossom? Do you
Yeah.
see any of those kids?
Yeah, either that or they like are like, man, I gotta like really pick this up.
Yeah.
Like they either look around a little scared, like, what did I get myself into? But then yes, they do end up blossoming because the level of practicing happen. I don't know, they practice more in jazz band. I don't know why, but they're always better practicers. They're I don't know, maybe not the trumpet players, but my saxophone player, my drummer always practice. I don't know. To me, they're one of my strongest players in the band. They're almost always my drummers because I tell them, guys, I'm like, guys, I'm not a good drummer. I can't tell you much. I can show you what I want. I can sing to you what I want. I can tell you what it means on the paper, but I can't demonstrate it as well as I'd like to. So I tell them, I'm like, you got to do a lot of work on your own. And to me, that makes them like work harder almost. I wish I could help them more, but I must sing. I'm like, play it like this. Do about, play your feel like da da ba da ba do ba da ba ba, you know, and that helps them know that the fill needs to sound something like that. And I'm thankful
Do you
that
see
they
those strugglers, Rick?
I don't think that I don't want to say that I have the greatest jazz band because I don't. And I just don't have the students that struggle in concert band. They don't do jazz band. I think my jazz band I think is filled with my top tier students. And while I might only have two or three trumpet players or one trombone player, like they all work and get their stuff done, but it's those kids that are on like the fence. Like I try to get them in and then I don't see them, they don't follow through. So my students, I guess that, if they do struggle, I think they feel like they're really far behind. And sadly, they decide to just not continue, which I hate seeing. Like, I want everybody to be a part of it. I'm still one of those band directors. I'm on the fence with this. That is a purist in that I want saxophones, trombones, trumpets, rhythm section. And I know I've got kids coming up next year who are super interested in jazz band that play flute. And, that's something that not that I don't have to wrestle with it, but it is something I've got to look at and go, is this what I want to include? And the answer will be yes, because I do want more kids. And, who knows, maybe they go, hey, I want to learn saxophone, or I really need trombone players. And maybe somebody wants to pick up the trombone. So I always am very hopeful that that'll happen and very encouraging that they try to pick another instrument because I think personally, I think trombone will add more than flute will, but I do think it's cool. Like if I can get a flute soloist to improv, like that always would be cool.
Yas
yeah,
flute.
Yeah.
yeah, just to add on to that, I used to be sort of purist too, like, "Oh, why do we need clarinets and flutes in here?" Like the you can't really hear them. Well, that's not the point. Like, they're still playing and, you can mic them and you can get them, if they wanna be mic'd, some kids just wanna be there. And it's
Hmm.
not necessarily about, like, being in the jazz or being perfect jazz or I don't even make them sit in the right spot sometimes. Like, I have so many trumpets, like, there's no way we can line up our first parts together because there's just no way we can do that. And I didn't know that that's how you did it for a long time. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation of lining everybody up the right way.
I'm
But
grinding
anyway,
my teeth a little bit as a purist.
I bet you are. But, like, when it comes to flute, like, I would get so bogged down that there's no part, and I don't have time to arrange a part. Well, I had one girl who was like, "I'll do it." tell me what part you want to play. And she would take the trumpet part or the sax part and she would arrange it. And I was like, you are welcome to stay as long as you want. And I tell them now, like, hey, like this is something you could do. And some kids aren't scared of that. And they're willing to jump on it. And that same girl, we played Swingin' Shepherd Blues, which has a flute solo. The original is a flute solo. Mo the Kaufman that wrote that played the flute in it. And like that was so cool that I took that song and she played that solo and it was just like really, really cool. And I changed my whole opinion on flutes and clarinets and jazz band. Clarinets can play trumpet parts, flutes can play alto parts written in their own, whatever. It's not that big a deal. It's not that deep either. Like, are
And
we going to
there
be pure or are we going to let kids have a musical experience?
Right. And there's a lot more arrangements out there that are including flute. And I don't know if that's more at the high school level or if that's happening in the middle school level, but I know that the charts I get, there's always like those extra world parts.
A
Yeah,
French
so
horn
like
part.
flute, vibraphone,
Yep.
right.
Yes, I'm so thankful for those new parts. My old charts are the ones where I'm like, "Oh gosh, I wish I had a newer," because I'm sure the newer ones have them in there now, but I have these old covers. Oh, they're so funny. They're from the '70s, some of the songs I have.
So starting jazz band this year, my dad is also a middle school band teacher and he does a jazz band at his school. So he was kind enough to kind of share with me how he has arranged some charts in the past. But then something that I ended up purchasing was the Standard of Excellence, like jazz method books,
Yeah,
and
they're good.
they're split up nice in like rock, Latin, swing, so that we can kind of pick and choose some things from each. And they have like the rhythmic pattern breakdown and they have some improv exercises for each chart in the book. And it's been a really nice way. And it comes for flute, clarinet. I think those might be the only like non-traditional instruments I bought them for were flute and clarinet. But Rick said something earlier about the struggle sometimes when we get some students in from concert band. I also don't necessarily have any students that like are struggling in concert band that jump up and join jazz band, but I think that the beautiful thing about jazz band is I have multiple high schoolers that I had never taught in middle school band, but they are very talented musicians, but they come from a background of learning by rote and just jamming with their friends and their family. And they are very clearly have perfect pitch. Like, just I learned so much by watching these kids just like jam out with each other. So having them in jazz band has been a way to like have some awesome musicians in my jazz band, but also be like, okay, let's talk about your music literacy. Let's talk about how to read. So I think that has been like a happy coincidence that has come out of this is like they're just so talented and now like, okay, let's work on your reading.
Do you guys include any music theory in your class? I know I do, especially when we get to the improv and we talk about scales and stuff. And I see that as like a huge plus because jazz band is such an easy gateway to learn about music theory because you can easily, when you're teaching improv, be like, okay, well, here's the good notes that work. It comes from this scale. Here's what whole steps and halves, and you slowly get there, and those kids start picking up on this music theory that in concert band it's really kind of hard to approach it. We don't approach concert band teaching from a theoretical point. We're play your part, and I think that opens it up to a whole nother depth of music knowledge that these kids get. Do y'all see that in y'all's programs?
Yeah, I think that for me, I try to keep it super simple and like I like a high level of like, or not a high level, like 30,000 feet, So like I try not to go too deep, I guess, into it. Like here's a blue, some
It's
F
hard.
blue. Here's F blues scale. Here's B flat blues scale. And let's find a chart that we can use that scale and every note from that scale will work in the solo section. And because that's where a kid's going to find success. And that's what they want to be able to play notes that sound good. And if I tell them, hey, you play this scale, you play the notes of this scale, you're going to sound pretty good. And, we do like where the rhythm section is changing chords, we do a lot of listening. I don't necessarily talk about those chords. I say, oh, do we hear that change? Oh, it's changing, and I say the chord is changing. I don't say what kind of chord it is. Do they need to know that necessarily? No. They just need to know that, oh, something's changing. Okay, so we got to hit this note instead of this note. And like in that way, and that's almost like the way they teach things in, elementary school. Like, do you need to know that it's this specific? No, you'll learn that it's more specific later on. And hopefully they'll continue to learn that in high school. If you just keep it at a simple level, because sometimes start talking about chords and sevenths and like dominance, and kids go, "Oh." Some kids love it and they start frothing at the mouth.
Yeah.
But
I
some
like those
kids,
kids.
yeah, but some kids are
Yeah.
gonna be, like, checked out, like,
Most kids will,
"What's for
yes.
Yeah.
lunch?" And, you just gotta keep it simple, and that's why you gotta get a chart that is simple enough for them to succeed in, which I didn't do for a long time. I was wanting to play those standards all the time, when really I should have been playing, like, Mike Steinel
Blues.
arrangements. Yeah, or, just some simple blues charts, when I
Yeah.
was just like I was like, "Oh, I wanna play Night in Tunisia," like, well, we can play Night in Tunisia after we play, Bubbert Kicks Back or whatever, So, those Bubbert charts, don't sleep on those Bubbert charts. They're all by Mike Steinel, and they're all great to solo on. Anyway.
Anyone else?
So I might sound like the bad band director here. I don't do a lot of music theory. I think a lot of it, I don't want to say it's going to go over the kids' heads, but again, I just keep it simple. It's kind of like on a need to know basis. What do I need them to
Yeah.
know to be successful? So a lot of it is like, here's the scale you can use. And if you want to make it sound jazzy, just lower the seventh. Or here's the blues scale. And I just tell them when we're starting to improv, just start with whole notes, start with half notes. All of these notes will work. Don't hang on this one. Like, don't hang on the fourth, because that's the one that'll be kind of like funky. But other than that, I really don't. I don't sit there and like talk about chord structure and changes and
Yeah. Totally,
Yeah.
it's a need
yeah,
to know.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
teach, here's
Go
these
ahead.
Yeah.
scales, here's these notes. But I had this one jazz kid last year, no, 2 years ago now. He made all state alto sax all 3 years. We only do it for 10, 11, 12th grade in our state. All 3 years made first band, all state saxophone. And of course, I'm teaching the kids, like, hey, here's the blues scale. Here's how this works. It'll work over this. And then I lean over to him, like, here's the whole tone scale. It's going to sound good on here, and I'm like giving these sidebars. Here's your fully diminished scale. Use this here. It
Right.
sounds good.
Yeah, and exactly. Rick, don't ever say you're a bad band director. Like, that's not like you're creating opportunities for your kids. And like, honestly, we have to think about it. Those kids that are in our bands, like, how many of them are going to go on to be professional musicians? I don't know. Maybe like 2%, 1%, maybe one kid. I don't even know. Like, they might even like just like to keep playing, but you have to figure out which kid needs it. Like, I have two kids who they came in sixth grade and they were the best little sixth graders I've ever had, twins. And I immediately was like, okay, I got to get you to this jazz camp. And I got them to this jazz camp. And then I was like, all right, the National Jazz Workshop is really close to where I am at Shenandoah University in Virginia. Last summer, they went to that. And I was like, learn everything you can. And they came back changed. They knew all kinds of things that I don't even know. And that's okay. They can know more than you. That is totally
yeah,
fine. And I encourage that. And to me, like, those are the kids that need to know the whole tone scale. They are the ones who need to know, like, what the exact changes are and how it's going to work over it. And they need to be transcribing solos that are happening in other, old classic charts. But you know what? Like, your alto player that like just wants to be in jazz band, he can just have fun. That's all right. They can still be great musicians and just be there for fun. That's not a big deal. So I think we just got to make the opportunities what every kid needs them to be. And just don't forget about, the ones who want a little bit more
Yeah.
in the end.
Being on month like 6 of having a jazz band, we're like kind of nearing that point of like, okay, when are we going to start having these conversations? And especially having 7th through 12th graders, there are kids that like we have those conversations. And then there's the middle schoolers where I'm like, what's coming out of my mouth right now is gibberish to you. Like, you're not, they just look at me like, well, but yeah, I love like the concept of not that it's need to know basis in any sort of secretive or exclusive way, but like really tailoring. That's the special thing about jazz band is you do have the opportunity to tailor the education kind of to each student. Like, when I was in jazz band in high school, I was not comfortable improvising. Great happy accident that I ended up playing the bari sax, because when would I ever need to improvise?
all the
But
time.
um
She's like, please
yeah,
don't make me. Please don't.
please
Yeah,
don't, like,
no.
no, I'm okay, just give me the bass line, like, I will sit here,
You're
honk
not
out
Gary
low
Smulyan.
A's. No, not my thing. But like giving the students that want it the opportunity and letting the students that just want to be there and want to sit and play and want those extra couple hours on their instrument every week, like letting them have that experience as well. Like it's definitely not one size fits all.
So do y'all see jazz band as a community opportunity? Because like it's the easiest group to be like, all right, we're gonna go play at this middle school. Let me get my jazz band. For us, we have a bunch of little retirement communities. We pull them out all the time, like, hey, it's just gonna be these 20 kids. It's easy to go to admin and say, I just need these 20 kids. I don't need all 60 kids and play at these community centers. What's kind of the stuff that you use your jazz band for to help expose? I mean, our band is our brand as well, in another way. How do you expose your brand to your community with your jazz band?
Jazz
So
band, go ahead, Rick.
okay. So we kind of do a little bit of the same thing. When I had that little small combo class, we were used to do all of the school events. Anytime there was an orientation, anytime there was an award ceremony, we were the cocktail hour. As parents walked in. And then as that class kind of went by, like the jazz band is more of like there's a grand opening somewhere in town, like they need something from the school. I'll send that as opposed to taking a 40-person marching band because it's a lot easier to take 15 to 20 kids than it is the whole kit and caboodle of marching band. So we'll do events like that, and anything that the community needs, like that's what we'll use as outreach. It's a lot easier during the spring to take them than the marching band. It's also a lot more fun than doing a parade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We
dislike parades.
our school, our jazz band, how another one of the ideas that this jazz band was born out of was we have our annual like fundraising gala every May. And they like to have some sort of performing group from every like school level. So like the younger kids will sing like whatever patriotic song is chosen, and the high school has an advanced classical guitar ensemble that will do cocktail hour. And we don't have a middle school choir, and there's not really like a same thing like to bring 30 plus kids and sit them down to like honk out uh what did we play? What's that one Muppet song? Rainbow Connection. To honk out Rainbow Connection during cocktail hour doesn't necessarily sound like it fits the vibe. So I'm like, well, maybe like we can get a jazz band to play at the gala. And that's what's going to happen. So they've been working really hard for that. It's the first week in May. And yeah, I'm excited, but I would also love to take this group to like retirement communities or
Yeah,
nursing
take them on
homes
tour.
or
Take them
any
on
like
tour.
that. I'm excited to see, like, I can't wait to hear what you guys have done. And I'm grateful for everything you've already shared because I'm like making mental notes of like, okay, like this is what I got to get on the calendar for next year.
I'll tell you, the retirement community is the easiest thing people to play for. They love it.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
when I took my kids the first time, they're looking around scared, like this is a little weird. They're not around these kind of people. The second they play and that man's on the front row clapping along, they all just got into it. It is the best
Yep.
audience to
We're
play
Yeah.
for.
singing along. They loved it. Yeah. We have a nursing home right across the street. Actually, it's outside our band room door. Like we just cross the street and
Wow.
we'll just carry our stuff over and we do it at Christmas. And our band goes over too. We have little events throughout the year where we go over. But we do it mainly at Christmas time and it's a blast. That's an easy gig. You just show up and, they sing Frosty the Snowman. We play a jazzy version of Frosty the Snowman and they love it. But, like, one of the things that I started doing when I first started teaching there, and I've done it every year, but, like, the COVID year, and was going to the elementary schools with the jazz band. The 2 elementary schools that feed into my middle school, like, they love it. Like, these teachers and these students cannot wait for the jazz band to come, and we always go the second to last week of school, and we have a playlist of songs. They're like, "Oh, are we gonna play this? We're gonna play this," and it's all, like, fun kind of pop tunes, but also, like, we played, like, Beat It, like Michael Jackson's Beat It. I almost said Thriller, but we don't play Thriller. We play Beat It, and these kids, oh my gosh, they love to play that song. The Final Countdown, like, oh my gosh, they can't wait. I have 3 Beatles songs that I have, like, pieced together to make a melody. So it's like, Can't Buy Me Love, I Wanna Hold Your Hand, and Yesterday. So we have that we
My
play.
favorite song of all time.
Yeah, and the kids that gets them playing some Beatles, and if they don't know who the Beatles are, because kids don't know anymore,
It's
then
surprising.
they and then I'm teaching those elementary kids too, like, here, this is the Beatles, and some of them know, and, so that's a lot of fun. We do play a couple jazz songs there just to be like, "Hey, this is jazz, this is swing." But, like, most of it's about recruiting. It's probably why I don't have any flute players, it's because like, in my regular band, because they all wanna be in the jazz band when they sign up for band because they think, "Oh, I gotta play the
Man.
saxophone." But
Michael
I love
Bublé has a "Can't Buy Me Love" that is just killer. You should find that. We played it in
yeah,
college. It's a very hard
I
arrangement,
bet.
but
Um,
oh, it's a very good one.
but yeah, so we call it jazz band tour, and we go do both schools in the same day. So we'll do one school in the morning, one school in like mid morning, and like two. So these kids have to. It's like 10 songs at each school, so their lips are kind of dying by the end. But then we all go out to pizza afterwards. We go to one of the restaurants in town that they host us every year, and we always tip them pretty good. And it's just become a tradition, and, like, kids will come back and be like, "Hey, you still go on tour?" And we're like, "Yes, we still go on tour every year." So that's something we do. We play at our county fair, but, like, I wish people would call and be like, "Hey, can your jazz band come play at this?" I'd be like, "Heck yeah, we would love to," but they want us to do parades, and I'm like,
I'm gonna go on record, and parades are the worst part about being a band director. That might be a
"Hundo."
hot take. It's
But
the
they do
worst.
play well, or they do pay well.
If
We
we get
get 0
paid?
pay. We get 0 for that.
No. We used to get paid for our Christmas parade, not anymore. Well, but it
So
lasts forever.
if someone's listening and they wanna start a jazz band, what's some of the things that if they're listening right now, what do you need to have a jazz band? I think number 1 on your list has got to be music. You have got to find good music. Either you're borrowing it for someone, you gotta find the appropriate music for your group. Don't go crazy hard. Like Miss Allen was saying earlier, like, you have to find stuff that's easy to solo on, accessible. You gotta start there.
Yeah, I love the book idea, like getting those books, Essential Elements has them too, Standards of Excellence. There's so many versions of that same thing out there. The Jamie Abersol books, are
Mhm.
great to get kids going on. Yeah, and then just following Pepper's guidelines on music, when they say easy, no, it's not easy for
Yeah,
jazz band
it's not.
typically. You have to go very easy or like I don't even the levels of music on JW Pepper and I are going to fight one day. But you have to find stuff that works for your group, and you have to think about your drummer. Like, all right, I've got a drummer. What can my drummer do? And then you got to pick music sort of based around your drummer and your bass player. You've got to have a bass player. I think to me, like I'm a purist that you need a bass player or at least a left-hand keyboard. I've gotten lucky
That's what I got.
and a bass player has fallen out of the sky for me every few years. And I'm always like, thank you, Lord, for the bass player you have given me. Because every year I'm always like, who's going to play bass if they're not already in the band? And every year, one year I had a girl that played, her name was Melody, and she played bass. That was fun.
She had no mel
And
I'll say
anyway,
I'll
but
say this.
you have to pick a music based on your bass player, I think, and your drummer first. To me, those are
Yeah.
like hands down. You got to go off those.
I'll say this, number 1, you have to have a good drummer. That's the number 1 most important spot in your jazz band. This one might be controversial, and I'm not even just saying this. Number 2 is your trumpet player. If you do not have someone carrying the melody lines, no
Yeah,
one's gonna listen to it. And then
yeah,
number 3 is your bass player. If you don't have someone with consistent tempo, laying down a groove to follow that drummer, after that, you can plug and play most every other kid. But I feel
yeah.
like those 3 spots right there in that order, you have to nail down.
Yeah, when the bass
Yeah.
player is absent, the kids are always like, "Why does it sound so
Yeah.
weird?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"A bass player's absent." Like, it's like a tuba being absent in a concert band. Like, it just doesn't sound right.
Mhm.
I think my biggest piece of advice to anyone starting a jazz band would be keep it simple, sweetheart. Like, I had this idea and have gone through this process, and I'm now 6 months in, and I think I'm finally in a place where there's some sort of routine. And the kids are preparing for something, like, have an end goal in mind too. Starting a jazz this is something that I've learned in, like, multiple situations over my first couple years of teaching, but, like, starting a performance group with no end goal in mind, it's really hard to get kids motivated to perform without something for them to work towards. So having, like, a community performance or something like low stakes for them to try for the first time would be a great way to boost morale and get them going. Picking a book that has all of those charts in it, the Standard of Excellence book has worked really well for me, but, like, the amount of money that saved my program by just buying a book at $14 a kid instead of buying like charts on charts and charts and then having to arrange the parts because I am a purist when you get to the upper level of jazz. I think at some point it should be standard instrumentation. But what I've grown to learn about myself throughout this process is that, like, I think extracurricular ensembles should be a place for anyone that they want to come and play. Like, they should be able to come and play. A kid that wants to be in the band room for an extra 2 hours of the week should be able to do that. So finding a way that that works for you and your students and the method books have been a great way to do that for me.
Yeah,
And also catering the repertoire that you're picking to the community that you're serving. The school that I teach at, we have a 95% Hispanic student population. My dad teaches at a middle school just blocks away from where I teach, and we both like serve the same community of students. And he's like, these are the charts that like my kids love and that were great for them to start off on. And it's all like Latin rock, Latin jazz. So that's what we started off with to get that buy-in of like, okay, like this is, and now we're branching off into swing and blues and others types of jazz rock and
Is
different styles.
one of those charts Strauman's Poco Loco?
No,
Which
it
is a
is not.
very much a standard beginner
A
Latin
standard.
jazz. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, a standard for
Okay,
middle
I'll
school
have to
jazz.
look it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's Strauman. It's Carl Strauman, who I'm pretty sure was just white man, but still, Poco Loco, that piece that he wrote, like, it's a banger. Every kid who I've ever had plays it, like, just has a great time with it. So
We did the Paul Murtha arrangement of Oye Como Va, and I actually do think it's a Michael Sweeney arrangement, but it's an arrangement of Fly Me to the Moon that's in like a
in
bossa
Latin. It's
style.
in Latin. Yeah, we have that one. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun.
yep, we
Sure.
did that, and the kids actually didn't like it.
Yeah, it's a certain
They
taste.
were like, "Meh," and I'm like, "What? Like, I love this. I think it's so cool." And they're like, "No." And I'm like,
If they've
"Okay,
ever heard the
on to the
original
next."
Fly Me to the Moon, they'll be like, yeah, they'd rather hear
They
that.
wanna do the original. I put it in front of them, and they started swinging. And I'm like, "No, you guys. Like, no, this is straight. Like, we're not swinging." And then they would do it just to, like, mess with me. Like, every once in a while, my kid that plays drum would just and I'm like, "No, like, you can't not in this arrangement." Like, I guess I have to find an arrangement of Fly Me to the Moon that's normal.
On a similar note, like I bought a rock straight arrangement of Groove Merchant, and then I listened to like the original, and I was like, why did I buy this? Like, because Groove Merchant is not a straight chart,
No.
but
Some
like
of
the
those
kids
easier
still
charts are
love it.
harder because they're trying to
Yeah.
dumb it down so
Did
much that you're just like, oh my gosh, that's not the right rhythm. You get so frustrated.
Yeah, if you can sell it to the right kids, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but you just have to pick and choose and decide which route, if you want to play a Latin version of Fly Me to the Moon, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Like
like it, I think it's great, but
my
they
kids have
weren't
been
into it,
dying to
so
play Caravan. Every year they want to play Caravan because it was in Whiplash.
We
And
played it
Yep,
last year.
I've gotten asked
I,
that
yeah,
dozens of
y'all
times.
probably played the same easier one where the rhythm is wrong. And my kids, we're going to correct it. We're going to play what the real one
But we
is.
played the original. Yeah, we played the Sweeney
Yeah.
arrangement and we fixed the rhythm. Like we played the
Yeah. Every
rhythm.
time.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
just want to play Whiplash. That's all they want to do.
And they come up to me and say, "Can we play Whiplash?" And I'm like, "If you can tell me the name of the piece."
Well, there is a song called Whiplash in
There
there.
is.
There
and
is,
it's
yeah.
way harder.
Yes, but that's not the one they're talking
That's not what
about.
they're thinking of.
Talking about
Caravan.
Caravan.
Yeah.
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 And I'm like, "If you can tell me what it's called, then we can play it."
Wait, why are your middle schoolers watching Whiplash?
It's
This
rated
is
R.
I know. And this is not the first time that this conversation has happened on a live or on a podcast. I am not sure. I have no clue. I did not tell them to watch Whiplash. I have not made Whiplash they take what I say because sometimes, you mess up and you say, "Oh, were we rushing or were we dragging?" Oh, that's my fault. I can't say that
Yeah.
because obviously I'm trying to be
Right.
from Whiplash.
I love that
Right,
movie only
right.
because of the exposure it gave jazz band.
Yeah.
That like my
Yeah.
parents all of a
Right.
sudden go like, "Was this what it was like in college?" Yes, that was how my college experience was.
Yeah.
It was stressful.
So
That's what it was
I
like in
have a
high
little bit
school.
of insight about why kids are watching that movie. As a parent of a 13-year-old, once they hit 13, life, parent suggestions and teacher it's all suggestions.
Yeah.
Nothing, they won't do what they want.
Mhm.
They'll find a way to watch it.
They're gonna find a way, and you
There's
know what?
worse
Like,
things to watch than Whiplash.
There are much worse things for them to be watching.
way worse. Like, when my jazz band got to the Capitol when we were performing, like, 2 because I was already down there with the All-State Band kids, one of them said, "Hey, so and so and I, we watched Whiplash on the bus." I was like, "On your phone?" And they were like, "Yeah, it was awesome." I was like, "You didn't tell me that."
Is the most relatable scene not him late for a gig and running back to get his music? And then when he gets in a car wreck, the first thing he thinks is, I got to get to the gig.
Yeah.
That was the most relatable part of that whole movie. I'm like, I've
Yeah.
been there. I mean, I feel him.
I had that, like, type of director, yeah. Not, like, so intense, like, but still that, like, level of expectation
Yeah.
more than anything. Like, the main thing he always said, "You gotta make the main thing," and the main thing is always the music, always, like, over anything else. Like, looking back, I was like, "How unhealthy is that?" But okay. But I've learned the kids are the main thing, myself, we gotta take care of ourselves, and that was him in his before he had kids. Now he has a different perspective, I think. I think we all gain a little perspective when we have children and we grow a little bit.
Absolutely.
Do y'all see stereotypes change in jazz band? Are your trumpet players more trumpet players? My bass players get goofier. Saxophones get more. I don't. Saxophone personalities in jazz band, they're always just like this. If I just picture they're just always like playing through everything as fast as
I
they
will
can.
say this, that my drummers are always they've taken way more seriously in
That's
jazz band
awesome.
than they're taken in regular band. Like,
They're
and if they're the drummer in jazz band and they're in concert band, like, they're the best kid,
without being
that's the
offensive, their
leader.
value
Yeah,
is so much more. Like
yeah.
percussion is still important in concert band, but their value in jazz band is just like, we need you. We need you here.
Yeah, the drummer, like, especially if you're the only drummer. Like, this year I only have 1 drummer. Like, there's been years where I'll have, like, 4, and they're all taking turns and whatnot, but, like, this year I have 1, so, like, that kid is the only kid who is controlling the time, who's driving the band. That's what I always was told, the drummer drives the band, and the bass player is the gas, so
Yep.
and, like, without that, like, to me, they have to set the standard and that they buckle it up, and I'm so thankful every year that they do that. Oh my gosh, because if they were wild and crazy, I would lose my mind.
Do y'all see any stereotypes in your jazz band?
I mean, I definitely have had a couple of egotistical trumpet players
You get those
over
Maynard
the years,
Fergusons.
and I wish I had those Maynard Fergusons. They
Can
didn't
I
have
take
the
it up an
range.
octave? It just sounds
Nope.
better if I take it up an
No,
octave.
my kids couldn't do that, but they
Yeah.
still have that,
Oh, I
like,
didn't say they
ego.
could.
But yeah, they just tried. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
yeah.
have trumpet players who are like, "Are you sure?" And I'll have to be like, "Let me go get my trumpet. Why don't I come and play it with you?" Like, gosh, the trumpet players are the hardest to teach, I think, even as a trumpet player teaching trumpets. Do your trombone players sit down? I'm curious, not to go off topic, but do your trombones sit or stand?
Stools.
I've done both. I like that, but I've
Sit
done
for
both.
now.
I do trumpets on risers, trombone stand, saxophone sit. Because I don't have 2 sets of risers to do another level of trombones to sit.
I think
I say
that's
it at
what
school.
decides it for me.
I say it at school all the time,
Yeah.
but kids who stand make me nervous. So like I want kids seated so we're not like walking around. I barely trust the trumpet players to stand. I want you planted. So we'll do stools or we'll do 2 tiers of riser and the trombones will sit on the first tier.
Interesting. Yeah, I've always done just the levels. I like to be able to hear them and whatnot. And I had a set of risers. I didn't. They stood on chairs for a long time, and I was like, "This is dangerous." Then I was
Yeah,
like,
no.
"I should just set up these risers that I have in the room." And now I made a permanent spot for them in the room. So, which I like having the trombone sit to me is just a little odd, and that must be a tradition thing because we're rarely going to go to a place where I'm going to have 2 sets of risers, 1 set of riser, not much less 2 sets. So
Unless you bring your own and
unless
that's
I bring my own.
and
So in the long run, it's like, well, we'll just figure it out. And learning how to get your rhythm section in the right spot together is so hard at first. I feel like,
it's so
getting
important.
it is so important, and, like, that was one thing that I, felt really proud of when I was at festival. The judge was talking, like, while we were on stage and we were setting everything up, and the judge was like, "That director knows what they're doing. They are getting that rhythm section exactly where they want them, and that is in the right spot. Yep, that's exactly where that drum set needs to be. Your director knows what they're doing." I was like, "Oh, good." Because, like, people will bring stuff in and just set it down, And if you don't go, no, that's not where it belongs, it can affect the sound so much. Like not having the drums right where they're used to sitting. If they're in off in another spot, it's going to throw the whole game off. And unless you take that time to move them around, it's tough.
You got to put the hi-hat right by the last trombone player. You
Yeah.
need your guitar or piano player as like the seventh saxophone or the sixth saxophone,
Mhm.
just to carry that lead line.
Yep.
And then putting your bass player behind everyone where they can see the drummer sticks. I
Yeah.
mean, if you can do those things, you're set.
I used to put my bass player next to the hi-hat, like between the trumpet section and the
Mhm.
drum, because I saw some bands do that, and I also needed to get my bass player, but then I needed to get my bass player away from my trumpets, so I had to move them because they were misbehaving, and I moved
Yeah.
them to the real spot. And I was like, "Yeah, this is where it belongs." There's been times when I first started, I was like, "Why does the Barry sit on the other side when they play the same part as the bass?" That is like, why shouldn't they be closer? So
You
I
have
used
to
to put the
sandwich
Barry.
it. You sandwich it.
But that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But like my beginner head was like, well,
Right.
that kid's been playing Barry sax for 2 months. Why don't I put him a little closer to the bass part so he can hear? And that,
Yeah.
that made
When I
sense.
first started playing Barry, I felt like I was on my own island. I'm like,
And you are.
I'm by
It's a wind
myself. I
ensemble.
don't know what I'm doing. And then
Because you
once
don't
I
have a
got
bass trombone
better.
behind you. No one has a bass trombone, not every band has a bass trombone,
Right.
or their regular
Or a
trombone
tuba
playing the bass
player.
trombone part. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have that, then they're right behind you there. But for the most part, you don't have that. So
There's a
our bass
science to
Yeah.
setting up to jazz band. I mean,
yeah.
it's everyone's exactly where they're supposed to be on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I saw this in a video. I don't know if it was a video or a conference that I went to where they would set up their band room and outline the floor of where the hi-hat goes, where the bass
Yeah.
drum goes, where the
Yeah.
cymbals go, where the bass amp goes. So that way, when like a kid shows up, they know exactly where everything goes and that jazz band is set up exactly how they want it. And I'm assuming that that's just going to drill that into the kids that when you go set this up at a festival or a concert, it should look like this. So I thought that
Yeah.
that was a really cool tip. So anybody out there that's listening and is looking for how do you set up your stuff, there, there's a way to think about it in your band room of where does everything go?
At a
Exactly.
Yeah.
conservatory.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to throw out some hot takes really quickly. What you think? Agree, disagree, really quickly. Trumpets don't run the jazz band. The rhythm section does.
Agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agree. Trumpets, they think they do, not jazz band. No. Most high school jazz solos are just concert band scales played confidently. No, I'm going to say yes. I think
If they
most, if
know
we're
what
talking
they're,
about most,
if they,
really? Okay. A good rhythm section fixes everything, even bad horn sections.
It doesn't fix everything, but it might cover some stuff up.
It makes things better.
bad drummer is going to make a good horn section sound bad.
Yes.
But a
I would
good
rather
drummer,
listen to a good rhythm section and bad
yeah,
horns than a bad
yeah,
rhythm and good horns any
same.
day.
Yeah.
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 Rhythm section got to be good.
Definitely makes it better.
A jazz band is where students learn to listen instead of just read.
Agree.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, listening skills are so much more vital. If a drummer can't swing, the whole band sounds bad.
Yes.
Big agree.
Yeah.
Big agree. Oh my goodness.
Big,
Yeah.
It's so hard to listen to a jazz band that just the drummer is just going, oh, it's so hard.
Yep.
Oh, sidebar. When we went to China, we played In the Mood. That was our closer. And our drummer's fantastic. He went on to play with Glenn Miller Orchestra. But playing In the Mood in China with everyone clapping on 1 and 3 is the
my
most
God.
difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I hope I'd never do it again.
You
my
just
God.
sent shivers. My whole body just like,
I mean, just try and play it in your head.
no,
no.
I'm one of those teachers that when like somebody's doing something so wrong, I'm like, no, we have to stop. No,
Yes.
you
Yep.
We
cannot do
looked
it.
at each other every time and we're like, focus.
I'm the director. When somebody does something wrong, I just stare at them. I give them that look like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
My
Just
kids know
stare.
the look.
Then I stop. Yeah.
The scariest thing in jazz band isn't improvising, it's trading fours with the drummer.
Drum solos are scary to begin with.
My goodness, they are.
Yeah.
Like, like one. All right,
You just
we're at
pray
one.
and hope we're all together.
Beat one. Your job is to get to beat one. Just
We
get
just
there.
we just added one in that wasn't in our arrangement. And I gave him like 16 bars. And I said, when you're done your 16 bars, just give me 4 bars of the feel. That way I know exactly where we are. Instead of trying to find that one, yeah.
To
'Cause
throw
I
it
get
back to
lost all the
Whiplash,
time.
if you're gonna do a drummer solo, you gotta do it like that, where the tempo just dissipates and it goes away
Yep,
and it comes back. That way you know, okay, here we go. Here's one.
yep,
That's scary too.
And
yeah.
trading fours with a drummer, especially if it's a good drummer, they're gonna throw you off on purpose. They're gonna try and like mess with you.
Right.
Many
Absolutely.
jazz band solos are just loud guessing.
Oh, yeah, especially
Yeah.
brass. Especially brass.
Sometimes.
'Cause they're like, what partial am I gonna hit? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not a good improviser either. I think me and Rick have talked about that before. I'm a
yeah.
lead player, so when I start playing high notes, it's because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just gonna play high notes, and people are gonna go, "Oh, he's playing really high." Hey.
My motto is always just play whatever you want and just hope it fits.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's loud guessing.
I think it was Dizzy Gillespie is about something about all the wrong notes. I find all the wrong notes every time. Even if it's the right note, I find the wrong note somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
A confident solo with wrong notes is better than a timid solo with correct notes.
Depends, but my gut says yes.
I think it depends on the style.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
this one was going to be different.
What?
I 100% am behind a confident solo.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'd rather hear right notes.
Yeah.
I love a kid
the
with
correct
confidence.
notes purist.
But I could go, I'm in the middle. I get it.
You're in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I want kids to be confident with what they play. And if you play something wrong, like who cares? You are confident. And
Okay,
that's the win I'm looking for.
Okay, then is it easier to teach the confident kid the right notes or the timid kid to play more confident?
It's way easier to teach the confident kid the right
Yes.
notes.
You think
Yeah.
so? Okay.
Yes.
I think
absolutely.
100% yes, but coaxing the timid kid out of their shell, out of their box
That takes some
takes
practice.
years versus minutes.
And that's where I think I'd rather have the confident kid with wrong notes because I can teach them the right notes.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now. That makes more sense. You're right.
Because when we judge, we have our solo and all region jazz. When I have that confident kid with wrong notes, I'll pick him every time because that kid's going to come in and he's wanting to be there, or she. The best jazz bands sound good even when the director stops conducting.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, because back
I want to
to
go to the audience, hear how they're sounding.
yeah, I want to go
Right?
backstage and drink my Dr. Pepper.
I know that we sort of talked about doing some questions, and I had gotten
Yeah.
a question that I thought was a really good question. So on my Instagram story, Bowie's XE asked, how would I conduct a jazz band? And I thought that was a really good question because there's lots of different philosophies when it comes to conducting a jazz band. So what are your guys' thoughts about that?
Conducting
I don't know
a jazz
who
band
wants to go
sounds
first.
counterproductive. Your
Stand there and
drummer
I snap.
your drummer is basically conducting it. You don't have to do much
Yeah.
of anything.
If
I
they
mean,
can play it.
you're right, and that's where if your drummer's the best, you're good.
Right. So, like, we're playing Night in Tunisia right now, and my bass player's got it, my piano player's got it, and that's the intro. It's bass, piano, and then drums. My drummer is almost there on like the groove, but if I show them one and I conduct it, it helps them groove better. Now, I'm not going to conduct it at the concert, but they're like we're only a week in of learning this music, so I'm conducting it right now, and just to get the beat, it's just showing beat one more than anything, just to get them to lock in. And eventually, they're going to be watching the bass player, watching. And this is an ensemble that's been playing together since September, so I would probably even conduct even more back in September. But then I'm walking away eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you got to look at what your ensemble is like. And I think conducting could be anything from, yes, you're going to conduct every single beat of music to you're going to count it off and you're going to go stand on the side of the stage. And I do a little bit of all of it. You know, when you get into a ballad, I'm sitting there, I'm conducting it like it's concert band. I'm giving you that four pattern. I'm doing all the changes, all the dynamics. And then when you get into like, we do a funk tune, I count it off. It just goes and I snap or I point when I need to have hits and all those things where I'm not conducting, but I'm making sure dynamics are happening. So I think that the range is just, it's how confident you are in your students and your ensemble to needing total control. It could be a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I will say my jazz band performed in front of an audience for the first time in January. So they started in like October. So like it was a semi quick turnaround for a group of students that like have never played together before and something that's like brand new. So I did conduct that first concert. I know like in jazz bands that I've been in, that's not standard practice. But I just wanted to make sure that if something went wrong, they had someone that they could look to and that I wasn't putting them in a position that they weren't going to succeed. But my plan for the May performance at the gala is for them to be able to do now that they've been performing together for a longer time and have a sense of like, okay, I listened to so and so at this part and I know that I'm going to hear the bass here and so on and so forth. Like, I'm hoping that I can count them off and walk away for the most part.
Did your schools have a jazz band when you got there? If not, what was it like to start one?
So mine didn't. The school that I was at, I'll try to make this a short story. It was marching band 24/7. There was no concert band. It was marching band in the fall. They would take a month off in band class and kind of not do much, and then eventually come back in and start working on the next year's marching band show. So there may have been a jazz band at one point, but it was like student run. And when I came in, I was like, we're off and running. We're gonna do a jazz band, and the kids bought in. It really wasn't that hard to start it. We had a little bit of instrumentation, but a lot of those kids were a part of a community jazz band that the elementary band director ran. So he let me have a lot some music that he had, so we did a few of those charts. But a lot of those kids kind of already wanted to be a part of something like that or have had a little bit experience. So I kind of got lucky that we were able to start it off pretty easily.
Yeah, in my school,
Obviously, Miss
there
Hazlitt did not.
yeah,
Right.
right.
Yes.
Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, my school did not have band or jazz band when I got there 2 years ago. So everything has been a new and unique experience. Starting a jazz band was something that my kids were really excited about, having extra opportunities to play their instruments after school and to have extra performances has had been something that kids had been asking for. And I had most of what I needed. My dad was a great resource for me. Shout out to Mr. Hazlitt. I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to make that choice so early on in my career had he not like really helped me through it and been a great mentor as he always has been and continues to be. But just having to use my budget to buy some Latin percussion and some other things that are unique to jazz band, that was a hurdle to jump through of like, well, we're not using this in concert band, so is it coming out of the concert band budget? Jazz band is technically run out as a club, so is it coming out of the club budget? Like who figuring out who's going to pay for what was a little bit hairy in the beginning, but my school is very supportive of having an instrumental music program, so we made it work and the kids are loving it.
That's really cool. You'll get to say that you started the jazz band. Like, that's so cool. The whole band.
Yeah.
That's such a neat experience, for you and for that school and those kids. Like,
Definitely.
it's what a neat start. My school had jazz band. It was after school, twice a week. Looking back, I was like, how did I do that? And because now getting to have them every day is so different. It was very much a tradition of jazz in our county, in our district. The former high school band director, who's in the 80s and 90s, was friends with Sammy Nestico.
Mhm.
And so it was like in the blood of the people in our county. And, you know, even though we're just most of them are just a bunch of white kids, they could swing. And like, I tell some of them like it's working against us a little bit here, guys. We gotta we gotta fight our whiteness here. But like for the most part, it's definitely a huge part. Kids know what jazz band is. While
Mhm.
I would have been in elementary school growing up, like, what's a jazz band? Like, is that like Louis Armstrong? Like all I knew was just, like, tiny bits and things. When kids around here, they know what a jazz band is because 'cause they've been watching them in their elementary schools, and it's part of the culture. I'm so thankful for that in our community.
What are some good ways to introduce students to jazz band? This is from a future band director.
I think playing Christmas music that is jazz is a great way.
Yeah, in that
Like,
first semester?
yeah, and playing some holiday music because most Christmas music is jazz. Like, when you hear that stuff, it's not necessarily what I do, but I think
But
if
not
you are
my favorite
trying.
things.
Yeah, right.
I have a whole, rant on my favorite things not being a holiday song. It has one line, and we
Right.
just put it in as Christmas music, and
But
it
there's
makes me
lots
mad.
not just Christmas music, but, like, there's concert band pieces that have jazz in them, and that can be a
Mhm.
great way to introduce kids to jazz, by just picking a concert band piece to get them swinging in it, so.
Really enjoy like as my concert band kids enter class each day, I have music playing for them. Sometimes it's concert band, sometimes it's jazz. Sometimes it's just like instrumental lo-fi. Like it's kind of just like whatever I feel like listening to that day. And I think some great conversations have come out of that of like, what are we listening to? What is this? Like, and then if you're really intentional about those like first couple minutes of class playing something, in the last couple weeks, I've been using it to play marches for my 8th graders because they're playing 10 marches in 2 minutes arranged by Timothy Lose. So I've played the source material of some of the marches in that piece and talked about the Marine Band and the blah and all the like John Philip Sousa and had some great conversations around that. But also something that I have seen that has worked well to like spark some natural conversations is showing students videos of you performing. So if you have been involved in a jazz ensemble, showing them videos of that. Like I have shown some students when I was my freshman year at Eau Claire, it was 2020, so it was COVID. So the only way that we performed was recording with playing masks and bell covers. So
My
I've shown
goodness.
some of, I know it was really, really sad. But I've shown some of those videos. Same thing with marching band. Like I really like showing old marching band videos to my kids.
Okay,
Well,
okay, okay.
And the VHS tapes for me are very grainy, so we're not
I
showing.
would also need
that is a
Yeah, we're not showing those to my kids, and there's no beard. I've shown the kids like pictures of and stuff from when I was younger, and it's such a baby face, and they're like, "That's you," and I go, "Yeah,"
Yeah,
but
it's a little bit of a distraction to show videos of myself.
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, but I'd say all the same stuff. Like yeah, play it while it's coming into the kids are walking into the room. Play it in concert band. I sometimes I don't know. I get tired of saying when I was in high school or when I was your age. Like I try to avoid those phrases, but sometimes jazz band's completely different than when I was in high school. Like it's not really the same thing. So I try to avoid what it was like in the '90s because it was very much like Whiplash.
You start introducing soloing and improvising, and how do you balance the parts? So how do you
So
introduce soloing?
I think Mrs. Allen said it earlier where you do a scale, you kind of just talk to them about scales and like maybe just give them one note. I've seen some people just do it that way of when you're going to start soloing and improvising just using the tonic, right? And
Mhm.
then maybe you add in the fifth as they progress. I think that's the easiest way to start, especially with the younger kids. And then as you progress, as you get older, start adding in scales. All right, we're going to use the major scale, but lower the seventh degree, right? Make it a flat seven and kind of go through it there. Not sure what Sam means by balancing the parts, but is that like the backgrounds to the
I'm
solo?
guessing I'm guessing he means backgrounds to the solos, just making sure
Yeah,
everyone's underneath it.
I
so
have so many
hopefully
thoughts.
your soloist is mic'd and that really helps as well. But it's really just getting them, working that balance in a rehearsal and maybe getting a time on stage and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that just comes with more practicing.
So with soloing and improvising, well, just improvising. So let's talk about improvising for a solo. I will teach the kids, the blues scale. We'll learn the blues scale. And I'll be like, all right, we're going to just play one note of the blues scale.
Mhm.
And you're gonna improvise using one note. That's all you get. And I'll demonstrate it on one of the instruments. And I'll like, make sure I'm swinging some eighth notes and I'm not just playing whole notes and, but we're using one note and we can use whatever rhythms we want as long as we're swinging. And that makes it so much easier for kids. One note. All right, now let's do two notes. All right. And when I start teaching improvising, so this is a whole other thing, is everybody improvises at the same time when they first start.
We did that when I was starting as well.
Like, because there ain't time for everyone at first to go. Plus, they're scared. They don't want to play by themselves. Only, a few kids do.
Yes. I
So
was about, yes.
this relieves that pressure, and even in the warm up room, like before we go to festival, I'll be like, all right, play the G minor changes. If you're soloing in G minor, you get to solo now. This is your chance. And then they all at least get to run through their solo because there's not time in the warm up room to, 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 for every kid to play their solo, but like we could all play it at once and that's okay. They get to run through it a little bit. So like that's how I've always done it. And I think that's the easiest in my opinion. Also doing, showing them like a backing track on YouTube. Like you can look up F blues backing track that's in the same tempo as your chart. And you can go, all right, here, now you can go over to YouTube and just play along with this. And that could help you. And then using iReal Pro, if you want to really get get even more.
Pro is such a good tool.
It really is. And like I had a kid this year who she like put all of the changes to all of our solo sections into iReal Pro and then shared it with the jazz band. And I was like, thank you. Because like all she had to do was make a little audio clip and it sent it out. Like she put it on her app and it was just a game changer for so many kids to get better at improvising. So Lilia, how do you do it? Did you have anything?
So we're approaching that time with my jazz band, but this question led me to think back to like my time in middle school and high school and how we approached improvising in those settings. And I do really like the scaffolding of starting with rhythmic improvisation, whether it be on the tonic or whatever else, and then moving to melodic. And also, I remember the only time I felt confident improvising was when we did group improvisation where everyone went at the same time because I felt okay making a mistake because it was covered up by everybody else. So just like giving the space to try new things, but not feel like you're put on the spot and that everybody's listening to you. I think that worked really well for me. And I'm sure there were a lot of students that blossomed to love improvisation from that exercise. Unfortunately, I was not one of them.
And that all sorry, that brought me back to one more thing that I do. So I'll like make the rhythm section keep playing, or we'll use a backing track and I'll be like, all right, everybody gets 2 measures. All right, you're gonna do 2 measures. You're gonna do 2 measures. I don't care if you play one note. You gotta play something. And then but I don't make them do it if they're look like they're going to die. Like I'll be like, just, or maybe you can play as a pair, if you but I've seen some kids really blossom by just starting with 2 measures and they go, oh, that's not too bad, like, and then, all right, let's just keep passing it around. All right, let's just keep going. And we'll do that a lot in summer jazz band too, because we have the time a little bit more of the summer to do that. So
Last question. Should you try and force every kid to learn or try improv, or should you just let kids who are confident go? I struggle with this one. I'm very conscious about making those little shy and timid, players give it a shot. Just try. And, it's your chance to break out. And then at some point, like, it's just like, okay, I'm going to give up. It's so hard because I want to pick away at that shell and let them break out, but I also don't want to like upset them or make them hate jazz band. But balancing that line is difficult. It's difficult.
From someone who now I have said multiple times, like I was not comfortable improvising like through middle school and high school. Like I would sweat. I would like feel this tenseness in my body anytime I got put on the spot to improv. But I do think it's important for every kid to try at least once, especially in a group setting. Like growth comes from being uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I think that's a hard lesson to learn as a young person and as a young musician. But like by only staying in your box and only trying what you're comfortable with at any given moment, like you're missing so many opportunities to grow. So growth comes from being uncomfortable and being scared. But like try or ask if your band teacher is insistent that you improv, say like, can I trade fours with so and so? Or can I trade twos with so and so? Like find somebody that you love to make music with and improv with them. Like jazz is community and music is community. So like,
yeah, I
Just
think it's about
explore.
yeah, exactly. I
right.
think it's about giving them the tools to make them feel safe.
Yeah.
It's just like your room being safe. Are the exits blocked? Can we get out? How do we get out in case of an emergency? Where do we hide in case of a lockdown? Those are the first things I go over in my class, like to feel safe. So, in order to feel safe improvising, you've got to give them the tools to improvise. And if you don't give them the right tools, because I never had those tools, they were just like, make it up. I was like, make it up. What are you
Make what
talking
up?
like, what up? And they're like, "Well, play the blues scale." I don't know the blues scale. And it was just like, it was a lot of assumptions were happening in my jazz experience, especially in college, because they expected you to know that already. And I was like, I don't know that. Like, so to me, like, I'm like, hey, I've given you the tools. You don't have to play a ton of notes. You could play one. I had kids who would, every time they would play, they would just play a whole note, concert F. And you know what? Like, hey, they played
Yeah.
by themselves. They played in tune. You got to find the wins in every
Mhm.
situation. And, maybe one day they'll break out of that shell. I love the concept of the shell. And I think that's such a neat, you want to help chip that away sometimes, but it's got to be at the right time. And it might not be that kid's right time. making them feel safe is huge.
I love the idea of everybody improving at the same exact time. And I'm definitely going to take that back when when we do improv, maybe next year, and I have everybody do, or maybe our next rehearsal, and I go, you know what, we're all going to improvise today, and we're all going to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
That way, there is a little bit more comfort in that. But I do, just like everybody else, I feel like at some point you've got to try it. Listen, I hate seafood, but my wife makes me try it. Like, because you never know. You might be good. You might be that kid that breaks out and now becomes comfortable with it. I had a saxophone player. He's like, I want to try. Let me see. Let me give it a shot. Then now he's up standing in front of, when we go to a festival tomorrow night, he's going to be one of our soloists. So
That's
you never
awesome.
know who's going to get that bug and go, I can figure this out and be great at it. So yeah, don't force them, but get them to encourage to try.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, celebrate the wins. Be like, "Yeah, all right, clap for them." Teach the kids,
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
like, to be the
Encourage each
jazz band
other.
with them. Like, "Oh, yeah," or, if they are in the zone and they are grooving, like, you show them that you're grooving with them. Like, "Yeah." Like, all right," and I try to teach my kids to do that so that the soloist feels comfortable and they know that someone's listening to them, because oftentimes, like, everyone's just kind of focused on the chart and whatnot. And oh, something we didn't talk about earlier was the backgrounds.
You
And
would just yeah.
backgrounds. So something I learned recently, I don't know why I didn't learn this earlier, but you don't have to play backgrounds if you don't want to. You can take them out.
Tell
You can change the whole arrangement of a jazz chart, and it doesn't matter. Like, you could put the head over here and, like, change the solo. Like, there's so much you can do, and I didn't really realize that until
As a
started.
jazz purist, it's encouraged.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're supposed to mess with it.
Absolutely. Yes,
Right.
and oh my gosh, like, it's game changing when you finally, like, go, "Oh, yeah, I don't like this part. I'm taking it out." Or, "These backgrounds are horrible." Or, "The sax backgrounds are fine, but the trombone ones stink," or, just it's not like concert band. I feel like we're so in the concert band, like, "Oh, the music is the music. We've gotta read what's on the page." And in jazz, there's a little more leeway.
It's a
So I,
leeway.
I have a question that could be a different podcast. So maybe I ask another time, but I go to festivals that I have to hand in my jazz scores. And I'm not talking music in the parks. That I understand. Sometimes those adjudicators are not jazz aficionados, but when you go to a jazz festival, those guys are. I am like, I almost want to be like, no, you can't score study my piece because it's my interpretation of it. Yeah. I don't like,
All of my
is
jazz
that
festivals I've ever been to have never asked for scores.
yeah,
So,
it's
I don't know
something
why.
that this one circuit does, and I'm like, "Why? Why are
Yeah.
you looking at what I'm playing?" Like, because what if I don't play that?
Just listen.
And now you're judging me on my interpretation of it and not the interpretation the kids are giving you.
Well, if you
Right.
watch Essential
Yeah.
Ellington, they all play by memory anyways. Like, you just do
Well,
it.
So at our recent festival, and when we played at the honor band, every one of our solos for the whole night was improvised except for one. Because I had one girl, we played blue bossa, and she was like, "Can I please play the alto saxophone solo?" And I was like, "Every solo is improvised. It's gonna sound weird." And she was like, "No, no, no, no. I'll spice it up a little bit." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And so then I announced from the stage, I was like, when we first started, I said, "Every solo tonight is all improvised except for one, and I'm gonna let you figure out which one it is." And one of the judges, like, he picked it out. He's like, "I've heard this arrangement of Blue Bossa a lot of times. That's the written solo." And it was kinda neat, it was like a game, 15, 20 years ago, I would have been so terrified to do something like, but now whatever at this point. Like, jazz is laid back and fun, and you've gotta relax with it, so.
and it should be that. It should be fun. Like, if you're running a band like it's Whiplash, like something, and I'm
There's
not
something
knocking
fun about
anybody's
that.
culture
There's
out
something
there.
fun about that.
There
Yeah,
is, but it
that's
still should
masochist, little
be
masochist in you there.
yeah.
But if
It
we're
should
talking
still be
middle school
fun.
band, we're talking about school band, we're trying to have fun. We're
Right.
Yeah.
not.
Well,
All right,
yeah, this
guys.
is
So that is the end of the podcast. We thank you all for listening to Band Room Therapy on this episode. I'm Mr. Ashley,
Mr.
I'm Miss
Schwartz.
Ellen.
Miss Hazlitt.
and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.